Okay, so the problem a lot of people have with studying is that it's not inherently fun, and because of this, it's usually not an activity that people look forward to having to do. But unfortunately, as a student, studying is unavoidable. However, what if I told you that sitting down to study could be something that you actually look forward to? Throughout my time doing engineering at university, I spent thousands of hours studying, and once I figured out how to turn those long, challenging hours into something I was actually excited about, I was not only able to completely revolutionize my grades, but even went as far as becoming one of the highest performing students in my class. And in this video, I'm going to share with you the techniques that helped me to make that change. So if you're someone who's looking to get the most out of the time they're spending studying, this is the video for you. There's lots to get through, so let's get started. Alright, so the first way I made studying more enjoyable is to track my progress throughout the semester. And this is because it provided me with a sense of accomplishment and also increased my motivation to keep going. Tracking your progress allows you to physically see and measure the improvement you're making every time you sit down to study. And seeing this gradual rise can actually give you the confirmation that what you're doing is working and that all you need to do is keep on going. Now, there were three major things that I would track each semester, and they were my overall semester, my assessment, and my revision. First, let's talk about how I would track my overall semester progression, and for this I would use something I like to refer to as a course assessment list. And what this is basically a long list of every piece of assessment I need to complete in a semester, put into one chronologically ordered week by week list. For each assessment item on this list, I would include the name of the assessment, the percentage that assessment item would contribute to my final grade, and lastly the due date and the time. Throughout this semester, I would also use this list as a sort of guide to how much time I should be spending working on an assignment or revising, as this list allows you to look into the future so you can start working on things early. Next is assessment progression, and for this I would break down each assessment item into smaller subtasks. And how I'd actually go about doing this is by simply keeping a note on my computer which outlines everything that I need to complete in order to finish a piece of assessment. For example, if I had to attend a lab and write a lab report which contributes to my final grade, I would make a list that looks something like this. Lab report, read the pre-reading material, print lab methodology sheet, attend lab, make Word document for report, make headings for report, write introduction, write methodology, analyze results, write result section, write discussion, write conclusion, proofread and edit, submit report. One more thing I want to add to this section is that when I'm actually up to completing each one of these tasks, I would actually break them down further into goals, but you sort of get the point. Break down bigger tasks into manageable sections. Okay, and number 3 is revision progression, and likewise I would make another list. But on this list I would write down all the topics that we were covering from within the lectures and make a note about which tutorials relate to which lectures. And then slowly throughout the semester, and more quickly before any quizzes or exams, I would make my way back through revising the content for each topic. Alright, and number 2 is goal setting. And what I mean here is that before beginning a study session, you need to outline exactly what you want to achieve. But in order for this to be effective, you need to be really specific. For example, a goal shouldn't be something like revise method of joints, but instead should be something like reread section on method of joints from week 7 lecture, create summary sheet on how to solve trusses using method of joints, revise and repeat questions 2 and 3 from week 7 lecture, complete questions 5 and 6 in engineering mechanics textbook. As you can see, by going to this extra effort of breaking down the main goal into several smaller tasks, it becomes a lot more manageable. And also in doing this, you actually create yourself the exact steps you need to take in order to achieve your goal. Okay, and number 3 is test yourself. One of the best ways to find out if you're truly understanding what's going on in class is to throw yourself in the deep end and see if you can solve the problems you're doing in class without looking at any of your resources. Testing yourself like this not only allows you to see your progression, but also allows you to see where there's gaps in your understanding so that you can find where you should be focusing your attention. Now, I realize that for most people, doing a test isn't usually very fun. But what I would do to make sure that it was the most beneficial for me in my learning was to make my own. This way I knew that the things that I was testing myself on were things that I actually needed to work on or were likely to show up on the exam. And you might be thinking, well, how did you know what type of things were going to show up on the exam? And the truth is, I didn't exactly. But through taking a closer look at things like past exam papers, you can often identify questions that seem to repeat themselves year in, year out, and you can pretty much safely assume that a question similar to that will pop up on your exam again too. Of course, there was also other times where I didn't have past exam papers or quizzes to go off, but in those cases, I did just have to choose a good spread of questions from throughout the semester, but I still found this to be an effective way of studying. Alright, and number 4 is do it your way. And what I mean by this is that you should branch out and find as many different techniques or resources as you can. For example, you can do things like making your own exams like I mentioned before, or you can also do things like creating your own summary sheets. Thinking outside of the box when it comes to studying is one of the easiest ways to make it more enjoyable because you get to be creative in the process. When you just repetitively go over the same lecture slides or textbooks, it's pretty natural to get bored after you've done that a couple of times, and finding new ways to consolidate the same information is what keeps things fresh and fun. For example, if you are getting tired of reading and writing your notes, you could stop and watch a video on the topic on somewhere like YouTube. Okay, and number 5 is find a productive workspace. One of the easiest ways to lose motivation when you're studying is to feel like you're not getting anything done. So what you should try and do is actively remove as many distractions as possible. So if you are someone who when they're at home is constantly being distracted by their housemates or their family, make sure that you're going to places like the library or a cafe so that you can smash out your work. Likewise, if you are someone who constantly finds themselves being on their phone when they're trying to study, I would highly encourage you to start using the do not disturb function on your phone. These days we seem to get hundreds of notifications popping up on our phone every day, and while some of them are important, most of them are completely pointless. So to try and combat this, in the past I would just use the basic do not disturb function, but with newer updates I have started using the new personalized do not disturb function that you can use on iPhones. With this new personalized do not disturb, you can actually choose which notifications you want to allow to come through and actually interrupt you, and for me the only thing that I would allow to come through is phone calls. In my experience, any of the messaging apps or just a text message itself is usually not that important. If someone really needs my attention urgently, they're gonna call, and for those sort of things, I'm happy to take a break and answer those calls. Okay, and next is kind of an obvious one, and it's study in a group. Studying with your friends is a great way to make yourself feel like you're not missing out on any fun while still being productive. Also, having these extra people around you is really good for keeping yourself accountable, because when you look up and see that your friends are putting in the work around you, it's such a motivating feeling for yourself, and you can just use that to keep on going. And even if you don't have a consistent group of friends that you're able to study with, I would encourage you to go sit in the library around other people who are studying, because you can even use these random other students who are studying as your motivation. Next is make it easy, and what I mean by this is that you should make starting a study session as easy as possible. For me, that meant that I should invest in things that were stopping me from getting started. For example, whenever my housemates had people over, it meant that I had nowhere to study because I used to only use the dining room table as my study space. So for me, that meant that I had to invest my money in a table and chair so that I could study in my room. Likewise, if noise is something that constantly distracts you, I would highly recommend getting a pair of noise cancelling headphones. Obviously, if you're on a student budget, you don't have to get something like the AirPod Pros, but there are a lot of other cheaper alternatives which will allow you to achieve the same outcome so that you can study in peace no matter where you are. Alright, so there you have it. That was 7 of the different ways I made studying more fun as an engineering student. And if you like this video, you might also be interested in learning about the methods I use to rank first in my class as an engineering student, so you should check out this other video I made here. And if you want to find out how I prepare for my engineering exams, then you should check out this other video I made here. Okay, that's it guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.